This is number 25. It says, for which function is the average rate of change the greatest for the interval of 0 to 2 when we're looking at x? We're looking for the greatest or the largest average rate of change here. Now, in this particular problem, we could put a 0 and a 2 in for the x, solve for the y, and then find the average rate of change. But what you need to look at here in this first function is it's linear. It doesn't necessarily have an average rate of change, it's got a constant rate of change because anything that's linear has a constant rate of change. So the rate of change always for a function like this is going to be its slope. So 7/2, or when we change that to a decimal, 3.5. So we could take this and we could put in a point form 0, comma, and then let's plug it in. 7/2 times 0 is 0. 0 plus 2 is 2. And we do it again with the 2. So 7/2 times 2 would be 7. 7 plus 2 would be 9. Okay? And then we could find the slope here, the rate of change. So our y2 minus our y1 over our x2 minus x1. And that's going to give us 7/2, which brings us right back to where we were. Or we could have just looked before and said, well, this is linear. That has to be the average rate of change because it's a constant rate of change. On g of x, same idea then. This is a linear function right here. So let's just go ahead and find out what the slope is because that's going to be the constant rate of change. So you want to find like 2 points along this line that go through those grid lines. So here's one, and then here's another one that goes to the intersection of the grid lines. So it has a rise of 1 and then a run of 2. So the slope for this function would be a rise of 1, run of 2. Again, if you really wanted to, you could put in the point where x is 0 here, and then where x is 2 here, and find the slope, but you're going to get that's going to be 1/2 again. Now, h of x is not linear, so we do need to go ahead and mark where x is 0 on this graph, which is going to be right here. So that's going to be 0, comma, negative 2. And then when x is 2, so let's look at it on the graph here. It's going to be at 2, comma, negative 2. So we are looking for the average rate of change here from when x goes from 0 to 2. And so what we've got is we're going to take this y2 minus that y1, all of that over x2 minus x1. And then from there, this is going to be negative 2 plus 2 when we combine those signs, which is 0 over 2, which is 0. So the average rate of change here for between these 2 points is going to actually be 0, which makes sense because it's actually a flat line. The last question here, this one here, the function, we can kind of actually see that this is exponential in nature because look, it is doubling each time in the y's. So this is that geometric function, the exponential function. And so what we don't have in this particular problem is what x is, or what y is when x is 0. We only got 1. So we're missing that number before. But on a problem like this, we can quickly figure it out. Because remember, it's doubling. You're multiplying times 2 to get here, and then 2 times 2 gives me 4. To go backwards, instead of multiplying by 2, you could divide by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 1 divided by 2 is 1/2. So what we need to do is we need to do that 1/2 divided by 2. Now you can use your calculator. I'm going to go ahead and show you this longhand. 1/2 divided by 2 means we're going to multiply by its reciprocal, so 2 over 1 becomes 1 over 2. So that's going to give me 1/4. So one of our points would be 0, comma, 1/4, or 0.25. And then let's look at the other. When x is 2, because again we're using 0 and 2, the y is 1. So now we can go ahead and do the change. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That's going to give me 0.75 on the top and 2 on the bottom. So now you want to just actually divide those. So 0.75 divided by 2 is going to give you 0.375. So the question said, for which function is the average rate of change the greatest on the interval of 0 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 2. Well, let's plug this last one in here. We're looking for the greatest. 3.5 is greater than 1/2, 0, and 0.375, which means it has to be f of x.